three things I'd like to draw your attention to. The first, right in the beginning of the chapter, as they're in the garden and Judas brings the soldiers to have him arrested, the text makes it clear to us that Jesus... Did you get it back, Anton? Did you flip it back to the... Anyway, the text makes it clear to us that they did not come and take Jesus against his will or by force, that he willingly offered himself to them, that he was in control of the situation. Not that. Let me begin reading with, let's just read the first 4 verses or so. John chapter 18, beginning with verse 1. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples to over the brook Kidron, where there was a garden, into which he entered, and his disciples. Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place, for Jesus ofttimes resorted thither with his disciples. Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, cometh thither with lanterns and torches and weapons. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth, and said unto them, Whom seek ye? They answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said unto them, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with them. As soon as he had said unto them, I am he, they went backward and fell to the ground. Then asked he them again, Whom seek ye? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus answered, I have told you that I am he. If therefore you seek me, let these others go their way, that the saying might be fulfilled which he spoke, Of them which thou gavest me I have lost none. Now when he said to them, I am he, the text says they went backward and fell to the ground. It doesn't tell us why or what the circumstances were. It just says they went backwards and fell to the ground. That sort of suggests that it puts him sort of at an advantage, whether this was just simply the power of God when he said, I am, which is, by the way, that's the same thing that basically that God said to Moses out of the burning bush. When Moses said, Whom shall I say has sent me? He said, I am that I am. And when they said, he said, Whom do you seek? Jesus of Nazareth. He said, I am he. In other words, whatever the circumstances were, he's standing out there boldly in front of them, not trying to hide. They're not, rifling around looking for him. He boldly and freely presented himself to them. It reminds me of what he said back in John chapter 10. Elliot, if you would bring up John chapter 10, verse 17, just for a second. Let's just call your attention to something we heard a few chapters before. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life that I might take it again. The next verse. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This commandment have I received of my Father. Jesus made it clear back in John chapter 10 that nobody takes his life away from him, but he has the power to lay it down. And as he said to Pilate, he knew perfectly well for this very reason he came into the world. And the text told us back in John chapter 18 that he knew everything that was going to happen. He knew exactly what would take place. He wasn't trying to hide from it or resist it or prevent it from happening. He willingly offered himself to them so that the Scripture would be fulfilled, and he knew exactly what was taking place here. I think that's kind of interesting. The other thing that's interesting in this first part of the passage, after he said the second time, Whom seek ye? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Verse 8 says, I have told you that I am he. If therefore you seek me, let these others go their way, that the saying might be fulfilled which he spoke, Of them which thou gavest me I have lost none. It's interesting. These verses are very interesting to me, because he seems to take, the text takes great pains, and also Jesus himself seems to think it's very important for us to understand that of those who are his, he has lost none. This is not the first time this idea has occurred in John's Gospel. If you remember in chapter 6 when he fed the 5,000, do you remember that? And he took the little boy's lunch, and they broke the bread, and it fed the 5,000. He said to them, gather all the fragments so that none be lost. He's constantly making us aware of the fact that what's committed unto him, he loses none of it. He loses nothing. And now we're explicitly told in the text that he said this to fulfill and to draw our attention to the fact that he said in his prayer in John chapter 17, Of them which thou gavest me, I have lost none. Now, from our point of view, we consider that the fact that we're Christians is because we made a choice to believe in Jesus, and that's true, and that we made a choice. But, God, from his perspective, From His point of view, He knows who we are before we ever come to Him. He knows who we're going to be, before we've ever come to Him. And so from Jesus and God's point of view, Jesus regards us as followers. He regards us as those whom the Father has given Him. That's the way He looks at it. He regards those who believe in Him as those who are given to Him from the Father. And here He says, of those that you've given to me, I've lost none. He wants to attract our attention to the fact that it's not just about us coming to Him. It's about Him and His commitment to us. And as far as He's concerned, He's not going to lose anybody. That's what He thinks. That's how He feels about it. Now, I suppose theoretically a person could say, I hate you, God. I hate you, Jesus. I'm going away. I'll never have anything to do with you again. I suppose that's theoretically possible. That's a little bit hard for me to imagine. What usually is the case, people make mistakes. Things go wrong, and people get discouraged, and they feel as though that they're separated from God because of the bad things they've done or the mistakes they've made. They think that God has rejected them. I have met very many people who just willingly said, I was once a Christian, but now I reject God. That's not really the case. I suppose that's a possibility. In fact, I know that it is a possibility. But Jesus has the attitude that of those that are committed to Him, as far as He's concerned, He's not going to lose any. He's determined He's going to hold on to those that are His. And that brings me to the second point that I think is very, very interesting in this chapter, which is Peter's denial. Now, I don't want to stop and read it. We just saw it a moment ago. But we saw that Peter denied Jesus. And if we've read the other Gospels, we know the fact that he denied Him 3 times. One of the Gospels pointedly tells us that he denied Him with an oath or with swearing, which even makes it, I guess, worse. Now, would you agree with me that denying Jesus, as Peter did, that's pretty serious? As far as sins go, that's pretty serious sin. Wouldn't you agree? That was pretty serious little mistake there that Peter made when he denied the Lord. Wouldn't you agree? That would be up there in the top 10 for sure, as far as seriousness of sins. That's a pretty major misstep that Peter did there. And we don't have to even get into why he did it and what kind of, the fact that he might have been confused about what was going on. And, we don't even need to discuss why it happened, because the point is that it did happen. It doesn't really make any difference what was in Peter's mind. Listen to this. He denied Jesus vocally, with an oath, with swearing, publicly, 3 different times. I'd say that's pretty serious. Now, I just want to... We know that's true, and we know that's what he did. But I want to remind you of something, that Peter, having done this, Jesus never once reprimanded him for that. Did you know that? That Jesus never condemned him for what he did. As far as we know, Jesus, in fact, Jesus let it be known to Peter that He knew ahead of time what Peter was going to do. Did you know that? He said, in fact, He told him, He said, before the cock crows 3 times, you're going to deny me. Right? Before the cock crows, you'll deny me thrice, is what He said. And He knew ahead of time. In fact, one of the Gospels tells us that Jesus, when Peter said to Him, Lord, I'll go with you wherever you're going, and even if it's to death, I'll go to death with you. And Jesus took him aside and said, listen, Peter, you're going to deny me before this night's even over. And then He said to him in one of the Gospels, He said, Satan has desired to have you, that he might sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you to my Father. And then when you are converted, strengthen your brethren. Jesus knew ahead of time everything that was going to happen to Peter. Now, if that's true about Peter, do you suppose that's also true for you and me? I'd suppose it is.